Right, welcome to the training module on rapport, like massively important module, rapport. So we're going to go into it, we're going to discuss what it is, and I think I'm going to share with you actually not only what rapport is, but how you do it, and it may be the first time you've ever heard this. It's kind of funny that rapport is something we do, not all the time, but we do off and on, but people really don't know what it is or how to do it. So we're going to solve that today. Because here's the problem. Have you ever lost a project you felt you were perfect for? You felt you had the skills, you had the case studies and the backgrounds and the portfolio. You thought your price was okay. Everything was lined up and they said no, right? How frustrating is that? What's going on? I hear all the time too, people say, well, are your clients referring you? And they go, well, not really, not enough, not as much as I thought they would or they should. So we've got a kind of a bit of a problem here. Why are these things not happening? Now, obviously, because I'm talking about rapport, I'm going to say that the answer is rapport. But that's not the answer that you're going to get from clients when you ask them. They're going to say your fees are too high, maybe you weren't a great fit, someone else could do it faster, or they're offering to do some sort of early aspects of the analysis and design for free. That's the type of answer you'll get. You'll get the 4 Fs. Maybe there's more Fs, right? When in truth, the answer is often that you didn't actually have good enough rapport, because rapport can overcome all of these things. And in fact, lack of rapport, even if you had ticked all the right boxes, it can cause you to lose a project even though you didn't deserve to. Logically. Okay? Now, they know that doctors with bad bedside manner got sued more. Now, when we say bedside manner, we could almost say rapport. Doctors with bad rapport got sued more. And doctors with good rapport got sued less. Architects with bad rapport win less projects. Architects with good rapport win more projects, even if they are not the perfectly suited architect for a project. Rapport is massive. So we need to know what it is and how it works. So here we've got 2 people, right? At the moment, they're not connected in any particular way, right? When we get that connection, we get this thing called rapport. But what is the connection? Because it isn't holding hands, and it isn't touching each other. What is the connection that 2 people can get that can change everything? And how does it work? Well, what we need to understand first is a little bit of my iceberg theory, which is around the conscious and the subconscious. Now, as you probably know, 13% of an iceberg is above the surface and about 87% is below. Now, to me, that represents the bit above the surface represents the conscious mind, and below represents the subconscious. And I'm always interested in the subconscious. Now, the rapport definition in Wikipedia says a close and harmonious relationship in which people or groups concerned understand each other's feelings or ideas and communicate well. Now, I'm going to take it a little bit further than that, because I don't think that actually nails what rapport is. So let's investigate this conscious and subconscious. Right. Conscious, above the surface, it's ruled by logic and reason. Right? The subconscious understands images and emotions. Okay, so if we want to move someone at a subconscious level, which is 80%, it's, in an iceberg it's 87%. I don't know what the subconscious represents for your mind, but it's a lot. We are driven by our subconscious. Feelings and images that we see in our head. There's a couple of interesting quotes. People buy an emotion and justify with logic. Is that true? Do people hire architects on emotion and justify with logic? Certainly, a large portion of the time, I think they do. What do you think? And the second one is, if you want to sell what John Smith buys, you need to see the world through John Smith's eyes. Now, in this little module here, I'm more interested in the emotional side, because that is the big secret. Because this connection between people is not just a connection. That's too vague and broad for us to understand and be able to work with. It's an emotional connection, right? It's an emotional connection. That's the big secret to understand. When you understand that, then we have something we can work with. Because saying, oh yeah, it's just it's a feeling I have between, it's a connection. It's an emotional connection. Okay, so is this possible? Right, let's have a look at some of the emotions that people feel. First one, in terms of getting rapport, it can be that people feel fear. If you have two people feeling fear, that can bring people together. Now, often when wars are started, there's often internal wars within a country, but when another country comes along and attacks this country, all the warring factions within the country come together, they get rapport because they're scared, and they come together and they work together. Second example, isolation. I had a friend. Have you ever felt isolated in a situation and then you've come across someone else in that same situation who was also isolated? Maybe there was the two of you and you both felt isolated. Have you noticed how that can bring you two together? And you can feel somehow connected because you're both feeling this isolation within a group. I had a friend called Gary who went to Japan, and he was in a certain part of Japan where he didn't see that many Europeans. And he's walking along the street, Japanese person, and he sees this white guy on the other side of the road. And they both see each other, and they immediately lock eyes. They walk, they both greet. He goes on to the other side, and they both kind of shake each other's hands and touch each other because they've got an instant rapport, because they were both feeling isolated. And because they were both feeling isolated in an unusual situation, they had that immediate rapport. So like the people who are all feeling fear because they're being attacked, sometimes people feeling isolated, that can gain immediate rapport. What about love? Obviously, this is the obvious one, right? When you feel that feeling of love with someone, there's that, once again, a very deep connection that happens very fast. And it's incredibly powerful. You feel, the words people use is that I feel we're one, we're connected. In all these situations, we feel connected. And then the final one is, I want you to think, have you ever followed a sports team where you might not have known all the other people who are following that sports team, but you're also passionate about your sports team achieving a goal, whether you were following them or whether you're in it, that you immediately got this great sense of rapport with people you'd never met before. But they were like you. They shared the same goal. They shared the same feelings and passion and love for their team. And that got you connected. The whole crowd, whole crowds can become connected, can't they? They sing together. They chant together. They march down the street together when their team has won. And there's incredible rapport with those people. So I'm sure you've been in all those situations where you've been in a certain heightened emotional state, and so have other people. And then what's happened? You've found a certain sense of connection. And what happens when you have connection with people? You have a sense of trust. You have a sense of trust. So, emotional connection. And now, it's not just trust. When we have that emotional connection, we feel we know them, we feel we like them, and we feel that we trust them. Okay, let me explain maybe this by giving you a reverse example. Let's take the trust away. Let's say you and your partner are at a car yard and you're looking at a car. And this probably will have happened to you in life. And you're at a car yard and the salesperson is giving you a description on a particular car and you like it. You think it's good. You kind of like the salesperson. You can take him or leave him, but you kind of like him. And then your partner calls you away. And he or she says to you, I don't mind whether we buy it or buy this car or not, but we are not buying it from that guy. And you go, why? And you go, I don't like him. And you go, well, what's he done? I don't know. I just don't like him. Right? Have you ever been in that situation? And your partner refuses to let you buy this car that you both kind of think is the right car from that salesperson. So what's happened? He or she doesn't know, like, or trust that person. They're probably not sure why. But there's a disconnect. For some reason, your partner has got a disconnect with this person and is not making that connection, so therefore doesn't know, like, and trust them. So what is the solution here? How do we take this theory of rapport and actually use it to our advantage? Because obviously the answer is get rapport with people, and all will be good. Is that true? Yes, that's pretty much true in many cases. You won't be sued if you're a doctor, and you'll sell more stuff if you're in rapport with people. Right? So connect and project. What do I mean? Well, Zig Ziglar said selling is essentially a transference of emotions. And I heard this years ago, and I thought, what on earth does that mean? A transference of emotions? Well, it kind of means this. What I'm going to do is teach you how to connect emotionally. Now, it's so simple that you won't believe it, but now you know that rapport is about connecting with emotionally with people. This will become very simple and obvious to you. Step number one, you notice the emotion that the other person is feeling. So this is how we're going to connect. Okay, notice the emotion the other person is feeling. Step number two, you do it. You do the emotion they are doing. Now, emotions aren't things that happen to us. They are things we actually do. When we love someone, it kind of feels like it's happening to us, but we're actually doing that love. Right? When we're excited, we're doing that excitement. When we're feeling passionate, we're doing that passion. Right? We're doing it. Emotions are things you do. Right? They can be things that reactively happen to us, but make no mistake, you can proactively do any emotion. So step number one, notice. Step number one, notice the emotion that the other person's feeling. And then step number two is do it. And that is how we connect. Once you do the same emotion that they're doing, you are going to connect emotionally. And when you connect emotionally, you are going to feel that rapport. Right? Now, is that enough? In many cases, yes. But let's take it another step higher, because now we want to project. Okay, so we know that if we have an emotional connection, we're pretty much instantly they're going to feel they know, like, and trust us, which is a good thing, right? We're both on the same wavelength. That's how people often call it. Right, how do we project that emotion? How do we project ourselves emotionally? Okay, step number one is you choose the emotion. So let's say you're in rapport with someone, right? You're in rapport with someone because you're on the same emotional wavelength. Now, that emotional wavelength isn't necessarily the emotion that you need them to be in to make a buying decision or a hiring decision of you. So step number one, we choose the emotion that we want them to feel, and then step number two, we do it. So remember, we've got rapport with them, we've noticed the emotion they're in, we do that emotion, we get rapport. Now we decide the emotion we want to take them to, and we do it ourselves first, right? And if you have rapport, they will follow you to a new emotional state. Okay, now, selling is essentially a transfer of emotions. Now, when you're in rapport, it's very easy to lead someone because you may be in rapport with someone, but the state that the emotion you're both sort of feeling in rapport is not necessarily one you want. So let's have a look at this. I've just done a quick chart here just to really quickly, I guess at a very basic level, go through emotions and how they can be either useful to us or not useful. So let's assume that at one end of the scale, we've got emotions that trigger people to take actions and make decisions. And at the other end, we've got emotions that cause people to procrastinate, right? And then on the other axis, we've got emotions that make people feel good and feel bad. So what would an example be? Well, an example that might make people feel good but not necessarily make decisions or take actions might be if they were feeling funny, right? That we're laughing and giggling and joking. Now, that's a good feeling, but it doesn't necessarily drive decisions or actions. Things that don't feel good but would make people stop making decisions would be someone if they feel mistrust for you, obviously. Okay, what about fear? That's an interesting one. Fear can drive people to take actions. It doesn't feel good, but it definitely can drive people to take actions. However, I would put it on a sliding scale and say it can also make people procrastinate. It depends on the type of fear and how you use it. And then finally, what are some things, emotions that cause people to take action and feel good? Well, one would be excitement. Another would be passion. If you can trigger people to feel those emotions, then your chances of getting a good decision out of them to move ahead and take action are going to be probably higher than if they're feeling mistrust or funny. Okay, fear can also do the job if used correctly. So in summary, selling is about getting a rapport with people and then moving them to an emotional state where they're more likely to make decisions. Selling is essentially a transfer of emotions. Okay, so to summarize, how do we connect emotionally? We notice the emotion that the other person has, and then we do that emotion. And then, if we have rapport, they will follow. So how do we project ourselves to a better emotion? We do a better emotion. So once we have rapport with them, we do a better emotion. So let's say you have rapport with people, but it's not the type of emotion you need or want. It's not the passion or the excitement or the fear necessarily that's going to take new action. Then you get rapport with them down where they're at, and then you change your emotions, and if you've got good rapport with them, they'll follow. Makes sense? It's almost so simple, it's ridiculous. But that's how it works. Now we're going to cover slightly more advanced strategies for how to move people emotionally later on in this training. But for now, you just need to know that rapport is about connecting emotionally. And I would suggest you go out and practice this. You practice getting connection with people, anybody, just your family, your friends. Get connection with them and notice how you go into a state of rapport with those people when you do that. When you take the time and the effort to feel what they're feeling, the way they're feeling it, and notice how they will connect with you. And then, when you've got that connection, move them to a different emotional state and see if they follow you. If they want to stay in rapport with you, they will. So you can take someone who's feeling even a little bit depressed by matching them emotionally, and once you have locked in that rapport, you then start feeling good and see if they follow you. Okay, so play around with this. Play around with it because it's a really exciting concept. And for a lot of you, maybe you, just this concept here of getting rapport will be a major trigger that changes your ability to win projects. Just this one thing about winning rapport with people might be it. Wouldn't it be great if it was that simple? And you know what? For many of you, in many cases, it is that simple. Just better rapport is all you really needed because you already had all the skills anyway. You just needed better rapport. Right, you do need to go and practice this. So I'm going to let you go and practice it, and let me know what results you get.